Welcome to Unlocking Passion. Men Report. Let's begin with a new story. Kenneth Watt stood in the center of a small village in Nakhon Ratchasima province, surrounded by confused locals who were trying to understand why this American man kept asking about a funeral that had never happened. It was oppressively hot, 37 degrees Celsius, and Ken's black funeral suit, bought especially for this trip, clung to his body, soaked with sweat, as he showed villagers photos of Shanita on his phone. He said desperately, using her nickname, Shanita Ratanapong. She told me her mother died 3 days ago. The funeral is supposed to be today. Where is the temple? Where is her family's house? The elderly village headman looked at the photos, consulted quickly with other villagers, and then turned back to Ken with an expression that mixed pity and confusion. "This girl is not from this village," he said in broken English. "We checked family records. No Ratanapong family here. No funeral this week. Maybe wrong village." But that was the address B had given him. The address where he had sent money dozens of times over the last 10 months. The village where her sick mother supposedly lived, where her younger brother needed help with taxi driver licensing fees, where the family home constantly needed repairs. Kenneth Ward, 62 years old, had spent €165, about 1,000 supporting B's family over 10 months, including the $22,000 he had transferred just 3 days earlier for funeral expenses and family support during this difficult time. Now, standing in this rural Thai village with his phone showing her number as disconnected, her line account blocked, and her Facebook profile deleted, Ken understood with soul-crushing clarity that everything, the dying mother, the struggling family, the love and devotion B had shown him, had been an elaborately staged performance, and he, a man who had spent 40 years in business, making careful decisions and avoiding risks, had been the easiest victim she had ever found. Kenneth Ward had spent most of his adult life working with his hands and building something out of nothing. Fresh out of community college with a business certificate, Ken had started working for an auto parts supplier in Portland, Oregon. The job was unremarkable at first: warehouse work, loading trucks, managing inventory, dealing with mechanics and repair shops that needed parts quickly and cheaply. But Ken was reliable, showed up on time, worked hard, and slowly rose through the ranks. By 30, he was managing the warehouse. By 35, he was operations manager. At 42, when the owner wanted to retire, Ken borrowed money from his father-in-law, took out loans, and bought the business. Ward Auto Supply became his life for the next 20 years. The business did well, not spectacularly, but steadily. Ken employed 8 people, supplied garages throughout the greater Portland area, and earned a comfortable middle-class income. He was not wealthy, but he owned his house, drove a decent pickup truck, and took annual fishing trips to the Oregon coast. Ken had married a woman named Laura when he was 28, a dental hygienist he had met through mutual friends. The marriage was solid in the early years, not passionate, but comfortable and stable. They had a daughter, Jessica, who was now 32 and living in Seattle with her own family. But somewhere around their 20th wedding anniversary, things began to fall apart. Laura became critical and distant, complained that Ken worked too much, that he was boring, that their life had become predictable and dull. Ken thought she was going through a phase, that it would pass. It did not. Laura filed for divorce when Ken was 57. She got the house, half the value of the business in the settlement, and part of his retirement accounts. Ken had to take out a loan to pay the settlement. Suddenly, at 57, he was living alone in a small apartment and working 70 hours a week to pay off debt. The divorce did not devastate him because he had been madly in love with Laura, but because it represented the collapse of everything he had built. The life, the stability, the partnership he had thought was solid. After the divorce, Ken threw himself into work with renewed intensity. He had nothing else. Jessica called occasionally, but she was busy with her own life. His parents had both died years earlier. His few friends from the business world polite, but distant. Ken was fundamentally alone. When Ken turned 61, he was exhausted. The business was still doing okay, but the market was changing. Online auto parts retailers were eating into his margins. Younger mechanics preferred ordering parts digitally. Ken felt like he was fighting a losing battle. When a regional chain offered to buy Ward Auto Supply for $340,000, Ken accepted without much negotiation. Combined with what was left of his retirement savings and the equity from selling his small apartment, Ken had about $480,000 in total, enough for retirement if he handled it wisely. But Ken did not want to stay in Portland. The city felt empty without his business to fill his days. He could not afford the lifestyle he wanted in Oregon on a modest pension and his savings. And after 40 years of 6-day workweeks, Ken wanted something different. Warmth, adventure, a place where his money would go further. Ken had heard about Thailand years earlier from a customer in his shop. Stories of cheap living, beautiful beaches, and friendly people. After selling his business, he began researching seriously. He joined Facebook groups for expats in Thailand, watched YouTube videos, and read blogs about retirement in Southeast Asia. Pattaya kept appearing in his research. The city had a large expat community, many English speakers, good healthcare, and everything from quiet beach areas to active nightlife. Most importantly, Ken could live comfortably on €2 a month there, maybe less if he was careful. In July, 18 months earlier, Ken booked a one-way ticket to Bangkok with a connection to Pattaya. He was 61 years old, newly retired, and ready for the peaceful, affordable retirement he believed he had earned after 4 decades of hard work. When Ken's plane landed at Suvarnabhumi Airport on a humid evening at the end of July, he felt real optimism for the first time since the divorce. The terminal was modern and efficient, with signs everywhere in both Thai and English, and the warm air felt welcoming even through the air conditioning. He took a taxi to Pattaya and watched as the outskirts of Bangkok turned into the chaotic, neon-lit beach city he had seen in videos. Ken had rented a furnished studio apartment near Jomtien Beach for his first 3 months, 16,000 baht a month, about 460 cents. The place was simple but clean, with air conditioning, a small kitchen, and a balcony overlooking a side street. Ken spent his first weeks in Pattaya just adjusting. He walked along the beach every morning, ate cheap meals in local Thai restaurants, where a full plate of food cost less than €5, and spent evenings in air-conditioned malls or quiet cafes. The weather was hot and humid, the traffic chaotic, the language barrier frustrating. But Ken felt a sense of possibility he had not felt in years. But as the weeks passed, loneliness crept in. Ken saw couples walking hand in hand along the beach, families laughing in restaurants, groups of friends having dinner together, and he felt the weight of his own isolation. He had left Portland to escape loneliness, but he had brought it with him. That was when Ken started visiting bars. Ken met Shanita Ratanapong in his 6th week in Pattaya in early September. He had been walking along Soi Bua Khao, one of Pattaya's main bar streets, feeling curious, but also slightly intimidated by the scene. The street was laced with small beer bars, open-air establishments with neon signs, pool tables, and Thai women working as hostesses. Music blared from competing sound systems, and the air smelled of grilled meat, beer, and exhaust fumes. Ken stopped at a quieter bar at the end of the street, a small place called Lucky Star with only a handful of customers. He sat at the bar and ordered a Chang beer from the bartender, a young Thai woman, with a friendly smile. "First time at Lucky Star?" she asked in accented but clear English. "Yes, first time," Ken replied. "Still exploring the area. You live in Pattaya or Holiday?" "I live here now. Just moved from America. Retired." The young woman's face lit up. "Welcome to Thailand. I am B. My real name Shanita, but everybody call me B. Because too difficult for foreigners." Ken smiled. "I'm Ken, from Portland, Oregon." Unlike some of the more aggressive bar girls Ken had encountered in other places, B did not immediately ask him to buy her a drink or try to sit on his lap. She simply chatted casually with him while serving other customers. She asked about his life in America, why he had chosen Thailand, what he thought of Pattaya so far. Ken found himself talking more than he had in weeks. He told her about his auto parts business, that he had worked his whole life and was finally retired, that he wanted a simpler, warmer life than Portland could offer. B listened attentively, asked follow-up questions, and seemed genuinely interested. "You work very hard your whole life," B said, with what seemed like sincere admiration. "That very good, strong man like my father. Work hard for family." There was something about the way she said it, with respect rather than flattery, that made Ken feel appreciated instead of exploited. Ken stayed 3 hours that first night at Lucky Star. During quiet moments, B sat with him, and they talked about everything. She told him she was 28, from a small village in Isan in northeastern Thailand, and had come to Pattaya 3 years earlier to find work. She worked in the bar to send money home to her mother, who had diabetes and needed expensive medication. "I do not like this work," B said quietly, looking embarrassed. "But my family need help. My mother old. My brother trying to get taxi license, but expensive. I am only one who can work. Back home, no work for good money." Ken felt a wave of sympathy. Here was a young woman sacrificing her dignity to support her family, working in an environment where she clearly felt uncomfortable because she had no other options. It reminded Ken of his own work ethic, the years of pushing through difficult jobs because they had to be done. "How much does your mother's medication cost?" Ken asked. B looked awkward. "Very expensive. Maybe 12,000 baht every month. But I not tell you because I want money. I only explain why I work here." Ken appreciated that she was not asking directly. It somehow felt more honest. "I understand," he said. "Family is important. You are a good daughter." Before Ken left that evening, he asked for B's line contact so they could stay in touch. She gave it to him with a shy smile. "You come back visit me?" "Yes," Ken said. "I like talking to you. You are different from other customers." On the walk back to his apartment that night, Ken felt something he had not felt since before the divorce, a connection. Not just attraction, although B was naturally pretty in an understated way, but a real human connection with someone who seemed to see him as more than just a wallet. Over the next 2 weeks, Ken returned to Lucky Star almost every evening. B always greeted him warmly, as if he were the only customer who mattered. She sat with him for hours when the bar was not busy, and their conversations deepened. She asked about his daughter, his marriage, his life in Portland. She shared more about her own struggles, the difficulty of working in the babasas, the pressure from her family, her dreams of one day having a normal life. "I want to marry a good man," B told him one evening. "Not rich man. Just good man, kind and care about family. I want leave bar life. Have normal life like other Thai women." Ken felt his heart stir. Here was someone who valued what mattered. Kindness, family, partnership. She was not chasing money or status. She just wanted a decent life. By the end of September, about 6 weeks after they met, Ken and B were in a relationship. It happened gradually. B started meeting him for dinner outside the bar at local restaurants. Then she came to his apartment to cook Thai food for him. Then she stayed overnight. She brought a small bag with clothes and toiletries, and suddenly, Ken's apartment felt like a home. Ken had never been happier. After years of loneliness in Portland and weeks of isolation in Pattaya, here was someone who cared about him, cooked for him, greeted him with genuine affection when he came home from his morning walks. B made him feel young, vital, needed. One evening in early October, B mentioned something that would set Ken's financial ruin in motion. "Ken, I need tell you something," she said in a hesitant voice. "My mother very sick. She need new medicine, more expensive than before. Doctors say if she not take, maybe she die, but I not have enough money." Ken felt immediate concern. "How much does she need?" "Maybe 20,000 baht for 3 months' medicine." "I am so sorry to tell you. I know you not my ATM, but I very worried for her." Ken did the quick math. 20,000 baht was about 570 Cs. Really nothing compared to what he had in savings. "Don't worry," he said. "I'll help. Your mother has to be okay." B's eyes filled with tears. "Really? You help us, but you not even meet my mother. Why you so kind?" "Because I care about you," Ken said. "And family is important." She hugged him tightly and cried into his shoulder. "You best man I ever meet, Ken. Thank you so much. I never forget this." Ken transferred the money the next day. A week later, B showed him photos. An older mother in a village house, looking frail but smiling while holding boxes of medicine. Ken felt validated. This was real. He was helping real people. He did not know those photos were stock images purchased from a Thai photo service, specializing in family pictures for bar girls to show foreign customers. He did not know B's mother was not really sick, and did not even live in the village B claimed. He did not know this was step one in a carefully orchestrated extraction of his wealth. He only knew that he felt needed, appreciated, and loved for the first time in years. And that feeling would cost him everything. Call to action. If Ken's story is already raising red flags for you, please subscribe to our channel for more true crime and romance scam documentaries from Southeast Asia. These romance scams target kind, lonely people by using emotional manipulation and fake family emergencies. By subscribing and sharing, you help others avoid the same devastating mistakes. Press the subscribe button now and turn on notifications. By November, 3 months after he met B, Ken's life had completely changed, and so had his spending. B had officially moved into Ken's apartment and transformed the sterile bachelor space into something that felt like a real home. She cooked elaborate Thai meals, kept everything clean, and decorated with small touches that made the place more inviting. Ken felt he had gained a partner, a companion, someone who genuinely cared about his well-being. But the financial requests were steadily escalating. After the initial 20,000 baht for her mother's medicine, there was her brother's taxi license application, 35,000 baht. Then her family house needed urgent roof repairs after monsoon rain, 45,000 baht. Then her cousin needed money for a medical emergency, 22,000 baht. Then her mother needed additional treatments, another 18,000 baht. Every request came with tears, apologies, and promises. "I am so sorry to ask you, Ken. I hate asking, but you only person who can help us. After we marry, I pay you back everything. I promise." By the end of October, they had started talking about marriage. B introduced the idea gently, mentioning that in Thai culture, living together without marriage was looked down upon, that her family was traditional and wanted her to be properly married. Ken agreed enthusiastically. Why not? He loved her. She loved him. They were building a life together. But there was one problem. B could not stop working at Lucky Star while living with Ken because the bar owner demanded an advance payment to release her from her contract. A bar fine, essentially buying out her employment. If I stop without paying bar fine, they make trouble for me, B explained. Maybe call police, say I owe money. Better we pay properly, then I am free. The bar fine was 60,000 baht, about 1700s. Ken paid it without hesitation. B officially quit the bar, and Ken felt proud that he had rescued her from that life. But then B suggested something that would greatly accelerate the financial drain. They should rent a proper house instead of living in a cramped studio apartment. This place too small for married couple, B said. If your daughter visit, where she sleep? If my family visit, where they stay? We need real house. Ken saw the logic. If they were going to build a life together, they needed space. They looked at rental houses near Jomtien and found a nice 2-bedroom house in a small development. 28,000 baht a month, about 800 euros. It was more than Ken wanted to spend, but B was right. They needed room. They moved in during December. The landlord required first and last month's rent plus a deposit, several months up front. Ken paid, and they settled into domestic bliss. B decorated enthusiastically, cooked in a proper kitchen, and tended a small garden in the backyard. Ken felt he had finally achieved the retirement life he had imagined. But the house meant additional expenses. Furniture, 90,000 baht for the essentials. A refrigerator and washing machine, 45,000 baht. B's motorbike, so she could run errands and visit her family without depending on Ken's car, 75,000 baht for a used Honda Click. By January, 5 months after meeting B, Ken had spent about 112,000. 14,000 on her mother's medical expenses, 10,000 on family emergencies and home repairs, 2,000 on the bar fine, 14,000 on the rental house and deposits, and 2,000 firos on furniture, appliances, and the motorbike. He still had about $365,000 in his accounts, enough to live comfortably, and he rationalized every expense. They were building a life together, making investments in their future. The motorbike and furniture were not just for B, they were for both of them. The household expenses were reasonable for a couple. Supporting her family was simply part of being a good partner. Ken's expat friends tried to warn him. Dennis, a British retiree Ken had met at a cafe, pulled him aside one afternoon. Mate, you need to be careful. I've been in Pattaya 8 years. I've seen this pattern 100 times. Bar girl, sob story about family, escalating money requests. It never ends well. Ken bristled. B is not like that. She's real. She didn't even ask for most of the money. I offered because I wanted to help. That's what they do, Dennis said. They make you feel like the hero, like you're choosing to help. But it's all manipulate. How much have you spent? That's none of your business, Ken said, defensively. Dennis shook his head. Just be careful, Ken. Protect yourself. Get prenups. Keep finances separate. Don't put anything in her name. Because if this goes wrong, you'll have no recourse. Ken left that conversation irritated. What did Dennis know? He was just a cynical expat who had probably been burned himself. B was different. Their relationship was real. But in February, B proposed something that would push Ken's spending into dangerous territory. She wanted to open a small business. I do not want to sit at home all day, she explained. I want work, make money, be partner with you. I think I open small shop, coffee or maybe beauty salon. Thai women love beauty salon. I do hair, nails, makeup, make good money, be independent. Ken appreciated her ambition. She was not satisfied with being supported. She wanted to contribute. It reminded him of his own entrepreneurial spirit. How much would it cost to start, he asked. B had obviously researched it. For a small beauty salon, maybe 200,000 baht for equipment, products, renovations, then 3 months rent in advance, maybe more. Altogether, about 7,500 dons. Ken hesitated. That was a significant amount. But B presented it as an investment that would generate income, not just as an expense. And, if she could build a successful business, it would benefit both of them. Let me think about it, Ken said. Over the next week, B showed Ken potential locations, brought home brochures for salon equipment, and drew up basic business plans. Everything looked professional and well thought out. She assured Ken the salon would be profitable within 6 months, and that she could start paying him back his original investment. Ken transferred the money. The salon opened at the end of February in a small commercial space near their house. B hired 2 of her girlfriends as assistants. In the first weeks, the business seemed decent. Ken visited occasionally and saw customers getting their hair done or their nails painted. B seemed happy and busy, working long days, but the salon was not profitable. In fact, it seemed to constantly need more funds. Equipment broke and had to be replaced. 15,000 baht. Products needed restocking. 20,000 baht. The landlord suddenly demanded additional insurance deposits. 35,000 baht. Staff wages had to be paid even when business was slow. Another 18,000 baht a month. By April, 7 months after meeting B, Ken had invested about 280,000 baht in the salon, roughly $8,000 on top of the original investment. The business was losing money instead of generating it. Ken began to worry about his spending. He had now spent about $133,000 since meeting B. His savings had dropped from $480,000 to $345,000, more than a quarter of his retirement fund gone in 7 months. He tried to discuss budget concerns with B, but she became defensive and emotional. You think I waste your money. You think I do not try enough. I work every day, but business need time. You want I close salon, lose everything you invest? The guilt was immediate. Ken was being impatient. Businesses did take time. He let his fears override his better judgment. I'm not saying close it, Ken said, gently. I'm just saying we need to be more careful with spending. You not trust me? B's voice took on a wounded tone that tightened Ken's chest. Of course I trust you. Then why you worry about money? We together. What yours is mine. What mine is yours. That what marriage means. They were not actually married yet, but B had been pushing to formalize things. Ken had delayed, not because he did not want to marry her, but because he wanted to wait until his daughter Jessica could visit and be part of the ceremony. In May, B suggested they should visit her village so Ken could officially meet her family and ask for their blessing to marry. In Thai culture, very important, she explained. We cannot marry without family approval. Ken agreed. He wanted to meet her family anyway, to see where CB came from and understand her background better. They planned a trip for mid-May and took Ken's car for the long drive to the province near Korat. That trip would mark the beginning of the end. Ken and B drove to the province in mid-May, a trip of about 6 hours from Pattaya. The landscape gradually changed from coastal tourism to rural farmland. Rice fields stretching to the horizon, small villages with wooden houses, water buffalo grazing by the roadside. It was beautiful in its simplicity, and Ken felt excited to see where B had grown up. They reached the village in the late afternoon. It was small and rural, maybe 30 houses along a gravel road, chickens and dogs running loose, elderly people sitting in the shade of porches. B directed Ken to a modest wooden house on stilts with a covered veranda and an outdoor cooking area. This is my family house, B said, squeezing his hand. Please be kind. My family very traditional, very simple. An older Thai woman came out of the house, smiling broadly and speaking quickly in Thai. B translated. My mother says welcome. She very happy to meet you. Ken was introduced to the people B claimed were her family. Mama Sum, her mother, Papa Boon, her father, and Nong Tong, her younger brother. They welcomed Ken warmly, served him food, and treated him like an honored guest. Through B as translator, they asked about his life in America, his business, and his plans with B. Ken felt embraced by this family. They were not wealthy, but they were warm and genuine. When Ken gave them gifts, a fruit basket, cash in an envelope, and gold jewelry for the mother, as was customary in Thai engagement traditions, they seemed truly touched and grateful. Through B, Papa Boon said, "We give you our daughter. We trust you to take care of her. She is good girl. She loves you. We happy for both of you." That evening, they held a small ceremony with neighbors and the village monk. It was not a legal marriage, but a traditional Thai blessing ceremony that made their commitment feel official and sacred. Ken was moved by the simplicity and sincerity of it all. The next morning, before they left, Mama Sam pulled B aside for a serious conversation. When they returned to the car, B looked worried. "My mother tell me Papa Boon need operation," she said quietly as they drove away. "His heart have problem. Doctor in Korat City say he need operation soon, or he die but cost very expensive. Maybe 150,000 baht." Ken felt his stomach tight. 150,000 baht was about 4,300. How urgent is it? Doctor say within 2 months. My family not have money. They already borrow from neighbors for my mother's diabetes medicine. They very scared. Ken looked at her worried face and felt a wave of protective instinct. These people had just welcomed him into their family. Papa Boon was now his family too. How could he not help? "I'll cover it," Ken said. "Your father has to be okay." B, eyes filled with tears. "Really? But that's so much money." "Family takes care of family," Ken said firmly. He transferred the money when they got back to Pattaya. A week later, B showed him hospital papers. Documents in Thai that appeared to come from a hospital in Korat detailing Papa Boon's upcoming heart operation. Everything looked official and legitimate, but over the following months there were complications. The operation was delayed. First, more tests were needed, another 15,000 baht. Then Papa Boon needed pre-operative medication, another 12,000 baht. Then the hospital demanded additional deposits, another 25,000 baht. By July, 10 months after meeting B, Ken had spent about 160,000 euro, 58,000 for B and her family directly, 36 sounds for the house and living expenses, 36,000 for the salon, and $30,000 for Papa Boon's medical care. Ken had $220,000 left, less than half of what he had started with. His monthly living costs, rent, utilities, food, transport, came to about 2,700 pounds a month, meaning his remaining savings would last only 6 or 7 years if he stopped sending money to B's family. Ken was genuinely worried. He tried once again to discuss finances with B, but she reacted with hurt and anger. "You care more about money than my father's life," she said, tears running down her face. "My father maybe die, and you count euros. I thought you good man, but maybe you same like other cheap Charlie foreigners who only care about money." Ken felt crushed by guilt. He was being selfish, putting financial security above human life. What kind of person did that? "I'm sorry," Ken said, pulling her close. "Of course your father's life is more important. I'm just worried about our long-term security." "After my father?" B said. "Okay, no more need money. Everything will be fine. The salon soon make profit. My brother get taxi license and pay us back. Everything okay. You just need trust me a little more." Ken believed her. He wanted to believe her, because if he did not believe her, it meant the last 10 months had been a lie. It meant he had been conned. It meant he had lost almost $160,000 to a fraudster. It was easier to believe her than to face that possibility. At the end of August, B received devastating news. Papa Boone had suddenly died of a heart attack before the operation could be performed. She collapsed in grief when she got the call, sobbing uncontrollably. Ken held her as she cried, feeling helpless and heartbroken for her loss. He had met Papa Boone only once, but the man had welcomed him as family and given his blessing for Ken's marriage to B. "I must go home for funeral," B said through tears. "Traditional Thai funeral take 3 days. I must be there for my mother." "Of course," Ken said. "I'll come with you." "No, Ken. Thai funeral, very sad, very traditional. Better you stay here, take care of house and salon. I go with my friend who also from my village. We go together." Ken felt slightly hurt at being excluded, but he respected her wishes. Thai funeral customs were probably complicated, and his presence might be more of a burden than a help. "How much do you need for the funeral costs?" Ken asked gently. B hesitated. "Thai funeral very expensive. Must pay monk, need food for whole village. Must buy coffin and everything. Maybe 22,000 euros. Ken transferred the money immediately. B left the next morning with her friend, taking a bus to Nakhon Ratchasima. She called Ken that evening from the village, crying and telling him how hard the funeral was, how devastated her mother was. Over the next 3 days, B sent occasional updates, photos of what looked like a Thai funeral ceremony, and messages about how difficult everything was. Ken felt deep sympathy and wished he could be there to support her. But on the 4th day, when B still had not returned and was not answering calls, Ken began to worry. He finally reached her that evening. "Is everything okay?" he asked. I was worried. "Everything okay, Ken. Funeral finished yesterday, but my mother not doing well. I stay a few more days to help her." "Okay," Ken said. "Of course. Take all the time you need." But days turned into a week, and B's communication became sporadic. Sometimes she answered calls. Sometimes she did not. Her messages became shorter and less frequent. The salon remained closed. The staff did not know when B would return. After the 2nd week, Ken's concern turned into suspicion. Something felt wrong. Why did B not want him there during such a difficult time? Why was she being so evasive? Impulsively, Ken decided to drive to the village unannounced. He would surprise B, offer support to the family, and pay his respects at Papa Boone's grave. It was a 6-hour drive, but Ken left early in the morning, determined to be there for his fiancée. He arrived in the village in the early afternoon. What he found would shatter everything he believed. Ken drove up to the wooden house where B's family supposedly lived, expecting to find grieving relatives and funeral aftermath. Instead, he found the house occupied by a completely different family, a middle-aged couple with small children who looked confused when Ken knocked on their door. "I'm looking for the Ratanapong family," Ken said, B's family. "There was a funeral here last week." The woman shook her head. "No Ratanapong here. We live here 3 years. No funeral this month." Ken felt his stomach drop. "But this is the address. I was here 3 months ago. I met B's parents, Papa Boone and Mama Sam." The couple exchanged glances. The husband said something in Thai that Ken did not understand. The woman translated. "Maybe wrong house. Many houses look same." But Ken knew this was the right address. This was the house where he had been welcomed, where he had taken part in the engagement ceremony, where he had met B's family, desperate. Ken drove to the house of the village headman, a larger structure in the center of the village that seemed to serve as an informal community center. The headman, an elderly Thai man named Kamnan Somchai, spoke basic English. Ken showed him photos of B on his phone. "I'm looking for this woman, Shanita Ratanapong. She told me her father had just died. and there was a funeral here. Kamnan Sumchai studied the photos, then called several other villagers over. They discussed in Thai, looked at the pictures, and shook their heads. "This girl is not from this village," Kamnan Somchai finally said. "We checked village records, no Ratanapong family in village records, no funeral last week or this month." "But I was here in May," Ken insisted. "I met her family in this house." He pointed toward the wooden structure where the other family now lived. "That family lived there long time," the headman said. 3, 4 years maybe." "Never, Ratanapong." Ken felt like he was losing his mind. "Are there other villages nearby with the same name? Maybe I'm confused." "This only village with this name in district," the headman said. "Maybe she lied to you where she comes from." The truth began to crystallize with horrifying clarity. The family Ken had met was not B's real family. They were actors, paid to play roles for a few hours while Ken was visiting. The traditional ceremony had not been real. Papa Boone's death was not real. The funeral was fake. Everything was fake. Kamnan Somchai seemed to recognize something in Ken's devastated expression. He asked gently, "You sent her money?" he asked gently. "Ken, not how much?" He just nodded. "How about 165,000? The headman's expression shifted to deep sympathy. "I am very sorry. This happened before with foreign men. Thai girl make family, get money, then disappear. Very sad. You go police." Ken drove to the provincial police station in Nakhon Ratchasima City, feeling numb. He filed a report with an English-speaking officer who listened patiently but offered little hope. "Mr. Ward, this is very difficult case. The money you sent voluntarily." "Yes," she lied. "But do you have proof she planned to deceive you from beginning?" Ken realized he did not. He had receipts showing he had sent money, but nothing proving B intended to defraud him from the start. Every transfer had been voluntary, triggered by his own desire to help. "This probably civil matter, not criminal," the officer said. "You can try sue her in civil court, but must find her first. And even if you win, if she has no assets, you collect nothing." Ken left the station hopeless. He tried calling B again. Her phone was now completely disconnected. He checked her Facebook profile. Died. Her line account? Gone. He drove back to Pattaya. The 6-hour trip passed in a blur. When he arrived at the house they had rented, he found it empty of B's belongings. Her clothes, personal items, everything was gone. The salon was closed with a padlock, with a sign in Thai and English saying "permanently closed." Ken sat in the empty house and felt his life collapsing around him. He had spent 165,000 in 10 months. His retirement fund had been gutted, and the woman he had loved, trusted, and planned to marry had disappeared as completely as smoke. Ken hired a private investigator named Somkit, recommended by another expat. What Somkit uncovered over the next 2 weeks was devastating, but not surprising. Shanita B. Ratanapong had been running romance scams for at least 6 years. Somkit found evidence of at least 7 previous victims, foreign men from America, Britain, Australia, and Germany, each of whom had lost between $70,000 and $200,000 to B's schemes. The pattern was always the same. Meet the man in a bar, play the modest, family-oriented girl, gradually move in, introduce fake family members, create medical emergencies, systematically drain the victim, then disappear. Somkit also discovered that the family Ken had met were professional actors. Villagers paid about 5,000 baht to play roles for visiting foreigners. They had done it over the years for several fraudsters. "The salon was fake too," Somkit explained. "She kept it open a few months to maintain the illusion, but most money you gave her went directly into her accounts. The equipment you bought was sold immediately. The staff salaries you paid were fictional." "Where is she now?" Ken asked. "She left Thailand. Probably Malaysia or Singapore. She follows this pattern. Scam in Thailand for a year, leave for 6 months, come back with new identity. She has at least 3 different names and IDs. Somkit showed Ken photos from social media accounts. B in luxury hotels, wearing expensive clothes, traveling internationally, all financed by her scams. She made about $700,000 in 6 years, Somkit said. Across all victims, very professional operation. Ken felt sick. He had been one of many, just another victim in a long line of lonely foreign men who believed they had found something real. By September, 1 year after meeting B, Ken's financial situation was catastrophic. He had spent $165,000 on B and her fake emergencies. His remaining $300,000 was shrinking fast. $2,700 a month for living expenses, $4,500 for the private investigator, 14ers, Susan for lawyers who could not help him. By November, Ken had only $250,000 left. At his current burn rate, he would be broke in 6 or 7 years, and he was only 62, potentially facing another 25 years of life. Ken made the painful decision to leave Thailand and return to Portland. He could not afford to stay. He sold his car at a loss, broke the lease on the house, and flew back to Oregon with a single suitcase. Portland was cold, gray, and depressing. Ken had no apartment. He had sold everything before leaving. He moved temporarily into a cheap, extended-stay motel while looking for affordable housing. The contrast between his dream of a warm, peaceful retirement in Thailand and the reality of budget motels in Portland was devastating. When his daughter Jessica learned what had happened, she was horrified and judgmental. "Dad, how could you be so stupid?" she said over an uncomfortable dinner. "Sending that much money to some bar girl you knew for a few months? What were you thinking?" Ken had no answer. He had not been thinking, he had been feeling needed, appreciated, loved, and those feelings had cost him everything. Over the next 6 months, Ken worked part-time in an auto parts shop, not as the owner anymore, but as a counterclerk for $1,500 an hour. It was humiliating after owning his own business, but he needed income to stretch what remained of his savings. He lived in a small studio's apartment that cost £200 a month, ate cheap meals, and spent his evenings alone watching television. He had traded one form of loneliness for another, but this time without even the illusion of love to comfort him. After 8 months in Portland, Ken made a decision. He would return to Thailand, but not to Pattaya. That city held too many painful memories. Instead, he went to Chiang Mai, the northern city known for its quieter, more relaxed expat community. Ken had about $200,000 left, enough to live modestly if he was extremely careful. He rented a small studio apartment in Chiang Mai for 8,000 baht a month, about $230. He kept his living expenses under $1,300 a month, possible in Chiang Mai's cheaper economy. But Ken did not return to Thailand to hide. He returned with a mission, to warn others. He started a blog called The Bar Girl Who Destroyed My Retirement, detailing his experience with brutal honesty. He wrote about every manipulation tactic B had used, every red flag he had ignored, every moment when his loneliness had overridden his judgment. The blog became popular in expat communities. Ken received hundreds of emails from men thanking him for the warning, and dozens more from men sharing similar stories. Ken also began volunteering with a Chiang Mai-based organization called the Expat Protection Network, which educated foreign retirees about romance scams. He gave talks at expat clubs, shared his story without shame, and helped men recognize the patterns before they lost everything. B did not steal my money first, Ken told audiences. She stole my trust. She made me feel special, that our relationship was different, that she really cared about me. And once she had my trust, Taking my money was easy. I handed it over willingly because I believed I was helping a family, building a future, being a good partner. Every manipulation tactic worked because she established emotional control first. Last month, a 60-year-old American named Robert contacted Ken. He had been dating a Thai woman for 2 months who was asking for money for her mother's medical care. Robert recognized the pattern from Ken's blog and walked away before losing anything. "You saved me," Robert wrote. "I was about to send $20,000 as a first payment. Your story helped me see what I could not see myself." Ken saved that email. He reread it whenever despair threatened to overwhelm him. Kenneth Ward is now 63 years old, living in a small studio apartment in Chiang Mai on a budget of $1,300 a month. He lost €165 due to a bar girl who sold him a dream and delivered a nightmare. He will never fully recover financially. His retirement savings were cut by more than a third, forcing him to work part-time into his 70s and live far more modestly than he had planned. His relationship with his daughter remains strained. She still sees his actions as stupidity rather than vulnerability, and they speak only occasionally. But Ken has found purpose in the wreckage. He has become a respected voice in the expat community, warning newcomers about romance scams with the authority of someone who lived through one. His blog has been viewed more than 200,000 times. He has personally advised dozens of men who were considering sending money to Thai girlfriends. And by his own count, he has prevented at least 9 major scams worth more than €500,000 in total. "I will never get my money back," Ken wrote in a recent blog post, "and I will never fully trust a romantic relationship again. B destroyed that part of me. But if my loss keeps others from the same fate, if my story causes even one man to stop before wiring money to a woman who says her father needs surgery, then maybe there is some meaning in what happened to me." 3 weeks ago, Ken received a message from a Thai woman claiming to be B's cousin, saying B wanted to apologize and return some money. Ken recognized it immediately as another scam, probably B herself trying to extort more money through a reconciliation scam. He blocked the number without replying. Ken still walks through the night markets of Chiang Mai, eats cheap meals in local restaurants, and occasionally feels the sharp sting of loneliness. He has learned to live with it instead of trying to fill it. Filling loneliness with a false connections is how he lost everything. "She didn't steal my money first," Ken tells men at his support group meetings. "She stole my trust. And once you give your trust to the wrong person, taking everything else you have becomes easy." Kenneth Ward will spend his remaining years living modestly in Thailand, warning others, surviving on what little remains of his retirement dream. It is not the ending he imagined when he sold his business and flew to Southeast Asia in search of peace and companionship, but it is the ending he has, and he is determined to make it meaningful. If Ken's story moved you, please subscribe immediately and share this video. Romance scams destroy thousands of lives every year and target kind, generous people who simply want love and connection. These predators are professionals who exploit loneliness with devastating efficiency and legal precision. By sharing stories like Ken's, we protect vulnerable people from financial and emotional ruin. Subscribe now, turn on notifications, and help us spread this critical message. Your share could stop someone from losing their entire retirement. Thanks for watching. And remember, real love never requires you to continuously send money to someone's family. Verify everything, trust slowly, and never let loneliness override your judgment. Stay safe out there.